Hello and welcome to another All Nation Line video. This is John Wubble, and today we're in the garden because it's such nice weather and getting out of the shop is kind of something we want to do before the snow flies. Today I'd like to talk to you about a new model we're putting together, and since I like to do a lot of scratch building, sometimes developing these models for the business is quite interesting. And today we're going to talk about the New York Central rider's car. Now this is a reference model in our collection, which was fairly, I would say, semi put together. But in any case, you'll be able to find this particular car and some photographs on the internet, and the hyperlink is in this video here. And so what I'd like to talk about a little bit today is what happens when you start putting together a brand new model basically from scratch with today's technologies. So here is the first version of the New York Central rider's car. It's got 2 windows on one side, 5 on the other. And I think originally when this kit actually was shipped or released, they ended up using a Walther's die-cast car ends. What we did on this particular model is we 3D printed most of the parts, except for things like the trucks, couplers. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about this car because it's going to be a kit. And usually the first time I put something together like this, it's always a learning process with scratch building. And sometimes things are deliberate, other times things are accidents. On this particular car, when I did the roof, I printed it using not a whole lot of infill. When it was all said and done, started seeing layer separation, and I was a little bit disgusted about that. But then once I started putting things together, I thought, gee, this actually might look pretty good for a car that's been in service for a long time. So I particularly am not that fond of trying to put together the most perfect car in the world. I would rather try to model something, as it were, that was actually done in service and shows its wear and tear, its weathering. I always find a ready-to-run model that's been weathered not to be necessarily original looking, I guess might be the term. But in any event, I have another one of these models where I've made some additional modifications to the metrics and measurement. And we have a number of parts that go together rather easily. And the trucks on this that they used were a passenger style truck, not a caboose, even though a drover's type caboose that was done by the New York Central. A lot of the modifications were done in the New York Central shops. You'll note that on this particular model, you can see some of my initial mistakes. Made some measurements a little bit off. I've corrected those. But sometimes when you make an unintentional mistake, if you actually tried to replicate that for real, it gets to be a little difficult. But what this type of scratch building work, I guess, teaches you is what you can and can't do, and how to get to a end result that is your vision when you're putting together these models. This one is not close to finish yet. There's going to be brass trim on the corners. There's end platforms. and we'll review some of the parts here in just a moment. So now I'd like to review some of the parts. On my particular model, I decided to go into the scrap box where I have a lot of odds and ends, and found some older truck side frames, and I put some wheel sets in these, and I think we're gonna try this particular set out on the model first. There may be shorter wheelbase trucks, and I think it's a preference up to the modeler. Now what we've done with sections like the floor, we print them in 2 sections to be glued like this. We did the same thing for the roof sections. They print vertically. They get very, very smooth. 100% infill. Little CA glue, clamp them flat on a piece of glass on top of some parchment paper, and you're pretty much good to go. The joint generally turns out pretty well, although I would say that in some cases on a lot of my cabooses I like to use the Neposet paper that we print. It's actually plastic, but in the real world it was called hard Neposet paper, which was a water barrier, which they used on the floors, between the sheathing, on the sides, and on the roofs to keep the caboose rather waterproof. On the floors, we have the bolster, and it simply goes in here in place, and we drill and tap a couple of 256 screws to mount it, and you can use glue as well. And your center pin here for your bolster, I generally like a 440 machine screw Philister head. Your basic sides are 3D printed sheathing, and we have the openings for the windows. So what we did for the windows is we print the frames separately, and they go in, they'll just snap in to the cutouts. Maybe a little file up and clean up, because you'll notice sometimes there's some minor threads left over from printing. They're very easy to clean up. But on these particular window frames, what we decided to do to make it a little easier is to print it so that there's a slot in here, so you can just slip in the acetate all the way down. Probably you would want to do that after you paint, but before you install the window frame, you get a nice looking window and not necessarily have to just glue your acetate to the back and get it all messed up with glue. So that's kind of a nice feature. Now on the end of the caboose, once you have the bolster and the platform on, we 3D print this piece, which just will fit onto the end of this like so. It can be glued on, and basically all you have to do is then come along, put your steps in, drill your holes for your railings, put your brake wheels and all your little detail parts on, and you should make that rather easy and quick to get your model up and running. We do try to print all the rivet detail. Sometimes the rivet detail doesn't always come off really good, but other times it prints perfect. So again, it's something that I'm not trying to be a rivet counter per se, but I am trying to get the overall general look once this car is painted and decaled. So in conclusion, we're going to make this kit available as a beginner's kit with just the basic parts, so the beginner can get started and learn some skills, basic skills: gluing, painting, drilling, tapping, putting on however much detail hardware they want on the underbody, on the ends. There's no cupola on this, but there are some vents and exhaust stack. It makes for a nice looking car. It's unusual for the New York Central, and it'll look pretty good on a layout. And there's always the possibility of the modeler taking initiative and innovating. For instance, maybe keeping the roof so it comes on and off, and you can do an interior, that type of thing. A lot of options. So we're trying to help the entry-level modeler get into more robust kit building, and eventually leading to more scratch building. And this type of a kit can help, and can also be a great deal of fun to mess with. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I do not plan to give step-by-step instructions, because everybody has their own way of thinking and processes that they want to follow in terms of putting a kit together and painting, and we'll leave that up to the beginner as their learning process. So that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll do some more of these and look forward to your comments. Hello once again. Just to follow up, I wanted to just give another quick video, and this is the second kit after we made some refinements to some of the measurements and tweaked some of the files in the CAD program before we went back to 3D printing. We put some plastic cornices or corners on here. We put threshold in front of the doors. Again, you can see we have all the acetate windows in there, and our rivets are looking really good now. And one of the things I wanted to mention was we print these roofs and the floors in two halves, and what I generally do is print them vertically to get them really smooth. We can get a really smooth roof if we print them flat. The tendency with the vertical printing is sometimes we get layer separation, and I think maybe it may depend a little bit on our ambient room temperature and our filament that we're using. But in any case, if we print them flat, a little extra finishing on the underside of the roof is necessary, because we'll have build support material under here, and there's also a space under here which we could fill in with some epoxy or glue if we wanted to, but it's really not noticeable. But one thing I wanted to talk about is I really like this product called JB Quick. It's the first tube is a steel, and the second one is the hardener. So you mix the two, and I will generally put this roof on a piece of parchment paper on a flat plate glass and join the two halves with the glue. Then later on, I'll come along and add some additional glue on top, and then smooth it all nice and smooth, like some really car body work that you would do, and you will not see the joint whatsoever. Now on this side of the joint, you can see I've took some of the JB Weld, and I really wanted to smooth it all the way across and feather it, I guess is the term. And here you can see here where I could have used a little bit more, but I could keep sanding, and that would blend right out, and the whole surface would be smooth. This JB Weld will also buff. I hit it like in this area here very lightly with a buffing wheel and a light compound, and boy, it really made it nice. And you can see how even it takes some of the line work out of the 3D printing. Now the other option is sometimes we'll laminate black paper to make it look like a tar paper and epicet paper on these roofs. But I probably should do a clinic on the JB Weld stuff and talk about methodology and how to use it and some of the results you would get. But anyhow, did want to follow up a little bit further. This particular set of trucks are 36-inch wheels rather than the 33. You could go even probably with a smaller wood beam truck if you wanted to. Depends on what look you're trying to get. And so we hope this follow-on video shows what you can do with a kit. And this particular model is ready to be detailed. So let me know what you think, and if you get your hands on one of these kits, especially a beginner, I'm sure you'll have a lot of enjoyment putting it all together.